Welcome to This Just In, the show bringing you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. And now, for the fastest voice in healthcare, here's your host, Justin Barnes.
Thank you for tuning in, and welcome to This Just In. I'm your host, Justin Barnes. In these segments, I'll bring you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. As always, we're broadcasting from the This Just In studios on the Business Radio X network, as well as the Healthcare Now radio network. For this episode, my 241st episode, we have a great, insightful show with a first-time guest, author and Dr. Doug Farrago. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate the interest.
You got it. No, I came across your book and was very intrigued. Love your approach, and we'll dive into that in a moment. But my audience has never heard your voice before. So where'd you grow up, attend college, all that good stuff?
Okay, so I grew up in New York, went to the University of Virginia for undergraduate, master's degree in Houston, medical degree in Houston, did my residency in Maine, stayed there for 18 years. And then in the last 10 years, I've been down here in Virginia. I spent 30 years as a family doctor and had recently retired clinically. Now I'm just doing consulting really in the subject what I'm going to talk about today, which is helping hospitals retain physicians, because I don't know if they know what they're doing or care about it, but they really need to.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I've seen a lot of surveys, even participated in some recently, or just around the health IT and adoption, and then physicians and physician retention, and it's certainly murky out there. So I look forward to diving in. So I did not realize that you're a Northeast guy. I grew up outside of Boston, so I have a special spot in my heart for the Northeast. Maine is beautiful country, and so is upstate New York.
In the summer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got it. Very cool. So I used to go to Lake Chautauqua almost every summer, if you know where that is.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Very cool. So where did your passion for healthcare come from?
Well, I mean, listen, I'm a family doctor, and I did that for 30 years, and I just wanted to help people, and now I want to help doctors, because what the problem is, there's things getting in between physicians and their patients. That's what we want to do. We just want to help our patients. And when you have third parties giving a bureaucratic drag that just slows us down, it drives us crazy and burns us out, right? It's not about money. It's not about working hard. It's about trying to do what we wanted to do when we were a kid growing up and wanted to be a doctor. And there's too many parties in the middle that's making it hard. So that's why the burnout issue is. And for me, I was able to do what's called direct primary care the last 6 years, and I'm a big proponent of that, where you don't DPC. Yeah, you don't bill insurance. I've written 3 books on that as well, and I think it's the greatest thing, because you don't have the same level of crap from the third parties. You're just dealing with patients, so therefore you have less patients. So those doctors, the ones you're seeing are smiling, are direct primary care doctors. Correct. The rest of them, I felt bad, was the ones I left behind, which is the ones in the hospital. And that's why I said, before I go from this planet, I'm going to try to help those people as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I've been an investor, actually chairman of a DPC company, and have a DPC doctor, have had one. My whole family has one for the last 4 or 5 years. Love them. It's the most amazing care experience. I even had an example the other morning where we miscommunicated on I was just doing my annual labs, and I had just done them 6 months ago. And I was redoing them because I'm doing some health, just getting better at health, and I want to see how well I'm doing. And he didn't order everything that I asked for. It was just confused. It was my confusion, actually. But I literally stepped out of the lab, called him, and he did not pick up. He was with a patient. But then I called the office, and they picked up. They got me my new lab within not even a minute and a half. The lab was like, "How did you get hold of your doctor that fast and get a new lab order put in that fast?" I said, it's this model. It's my model. I love it.
It breaks the system, and it doesn't cost the system extra. The bottom line, it proves the same thing. The system is broken. Yep. Some things can't be fixed unless we take those third parties out. And we've proven that with direct primary care. Can you bring it into specialty care? People are trying to do that. Can you bring it in hospital care? Well, that's the way it was 50 years ago. So it's possible. Yes. So there are things that can be done, but that's going to be a slow boulder, which I know, right? Yeah. But there's nothing better than direct primary care, because it's not concierge care for the $1,000, a month. It's $75 a month. So we can talk all day about DPC.
Yeah, you got it. So let's dive into the book. I mean, The Hospital Guide to Physician Retention. What made you write this book?
Well, I said I really wanted to help those doctors left. Listen, I'm seeing the people every day. A doctor kills himself in this country, right?
Yeah.
So there's polysubstance abuse. There's people retiring, just quitting, doing other. It's just terrible. And what I'm seeing is not as many people there playing this game like, well, we care. They just need more resilience. Like, what? No, it's not about doctor resilience. There's things you could be doing. Now, I'm not here to say I can save burnout or even save. My premise in my book is, listen, for $25, buy the stupid book, and you may save one doctor from leaving. That's $1 million you saved. That's a pretty good investment, right? So that's all I wanted to say is, here's what I think is happening. Here's a few things I think it can help. If you want a deeper level of help, I actually am now doing consulting just on this. If they go to physicianretention.com, we will consult in a few different ways to help you do this. But you don't have to do that. Spend $25. There's things you can do to make physicians' lives better, because great leaders create great environments.
Yeah, and I'm going to dive into some of those topics specifically, but I agree. When I went through just your the outline from your book, every topic, and I'm not even a physician. I mean, I'm in healthcare, but on the digital health side more than the actual care strategy side, even though I dabble in care strategy from a technology perspective. But every topic that you covered was relevant to me personally. So, I mean, first of all, I totally think it's a great investment, just because you cover leadership, you cover healthcare, what needs to be done, and great value from that perspective. So I completely agree with you. I think one of the cool, when we exchanged emails, you brought up, you penned, why do most CEOs not like the book? So let's elaborate. Let's start there. I love that statement. So, elaborate.
Well, it really was. It was first. I was warned about this before I wrote the book. Okay, then I wrote the book and I forgot, and so then I sent out advanced copies to a lot of CEOs, and the response was horrific.
Right.
So it blew me away, and I had to sit back and think, what's going on here, right? I mean, listen, this is you're saving money, so why would you not want to read this information? And so I just walked into a landmine of a war going on. I think still a power grab, where there's many reasons that may be. Now, it's not every CEO, and there's more CEOs now come saying, hey, I really love the book, it's helped me a lot. But initially it blew me away. So I guess I wrote for the wrong audience. But the truth is, it could be that CEOs think this is a doctor issue. They're going to leave, which is not true. Or they just need more resilience, which is not true. Or we can just replace doctors, which is definitely not true. That is going to be a horrific, and that's happening.
Yes.
And I think they're leaning on that, saying, we'll just get 2 NPs or 2 PAs to do the same thing. That's not the same level of care, and you're going to burn. You can take my advice, but if you don't, it's at your own peril.
Yep.
So there are some CEOs that just don't want to pay attention to this issue of, hey, listen, why would you continue to fill a bucket up if you have holes in the bucket? Just patch the holes first, then we can worry about filling it up. And that's the cover of my book. And it's like, I'm not getting the traction I needed, which is okay. Listen, for me, I do not want to consult or work with anybody who's not really interested in actually trying to help the situation. My passion is to help doctors in the system. So your passion is to save money. I get that. And if we can come together, you're really into it, I'd love to help you. But if not, if it's only 1 in 10, that's fine.
Right. So I actually spent some time on this topic, even at the most recent HIMSS conference in Orlando. The Healthcare Information Management System Society has their annual conference. And physician retention was a big topic, only because of physician burnout is a significant issue for the health IT industry and digital health industry. And specifically, I think some of the numbers floating around that conference, and I actually did a couple of interviews on this, is up to 50% of care providers are unhappy with their jobs. It's up to 50% of care providers.
It's more than that.
Yeah. I mean, that's significant. If half the people in our healthcare system are miserable, unhappy, that's going to lead to so many other issues downstream for us as patients, us as a society. I mean, the fact that, that's why we went back and forth several times to get you on air. I'm glad we made it happen finally, because it's a significant topic. It's not just a technology issue. There's a lot of, issues as you bring up in the book. So on the CEO topic, I would love some of the initial reactions that you got back for, like, they're saying, well, it was how it's not a leadership issue, or, what are some of the content you got back?
Oh, doctors are spoiled. Doctors don't need to be treated like this. Doctors can be replaced. You're just a provider. I mean, it's just bizarre, right? It's and again, this is not every CEO and every doctor. I'm not saying every doctor isn't a spoiled arrogant. There's some issues there.
Of course.
Let me go back to what you said about the unhappiness thing. If you reverse that, because all we care about is, oh, they're unhappy. What if they were happy? So when I was in when I came out after residency, I was recruited to one hospital when times were a little bit different by two chief residents that I worked with. I got me and my other chief resident to go with them. We ended up recruiting within 2 years, 10 doctors of people we knew around the country to come work in this one hospital. We saved them millions, and we enjoyed working together because there was a sense of community. We felt valued, and we felt happy. And you not only happy doctors recruit other happy doctors stay, and happy doctors make patients happy. Yeah. So we're always focused on these unhappy doctors. Yes, we want to get them out of that gloom and doom, and there's ways to do that. But there is such a carrot there if you actually work at making your environment better and your doctors happy. And then there's, it's not about kissing butt of the doctors and treating them like gods. I make sure I point that out in my book a bunch of times. It's about doctors feeling valued and the sense of community. So that's important to me.
Yeah, and first of all, you're spot on. I mean, my day job is I build companies, mainly healthcare software companies, technology companies, and I care. My employee happiness and satisfaction is paramount to me, because happy employees creates happy customers. And some of your example is happy doctors and nurses create happy patients. And so, in most cases, so I completely agree. So as a CEO or whatever my role is in an organization of the board, I care about my team. I care about their happiness. So people really need to care about a doctor and a care provider's happiness if they are their managers and their leaders, for sure.
Yeah, but what's the result? The problem is a lot of the organizations, whether it's AMA, AFP, a lot of the health insurance companies, they're actually proposing all these ways to fix burnout. Dude, you've caused all the burnout, right? And so, people don't trust that. That's a problem too, is that I believe every hospital needs a physician retention program, but it can't be by somebody you don't trust, by a non-doctor. That's why I'm doing this as a physician that's been in a hospital for 15 years when I worked for 2 different hospitals and been on leadership committees. I do believe it has to be someone that I can trust, that's been in the trenches, that's actually on their side, because doctors just blow off consultants all the time. And I have that inside scoop. That's what I'm offering to people. I mentioned in the book, I'm the Frank Abagnale, which is Catch Me If You Can, the Spielberg movie. I'm that guy that was forging checks, and you want him on your side. I'm telling you, I know what's going on with how doctors think.
Yep.
And I can help in that respect. And I think I did that with this book. If you ever wanted to go deep, then that's why I have my consulting company.
It's excellent. For those that may have joined us a little late, my special guest today is author and Dr. Doug Farrago. So tell us about your challenge. You said challenging health systems to do an ENPS score and see if they are a physician-friendly hospital. Please elaborate on that.
So a Net Promoter Score, Reichhold did that book in 2006, I believe, and it's a little controversial. The regular NPS, which is customer, would you recommend your family member or friend to buy from this company? But he also has an employee NPS score, which is, hey, would you recommend, let's say for doctors, this hospital for a colleague to come work at?
Right.
And that is on the money for us, because we would never want to. We're a club, and we would never want our friend or colleague to come here if the place sucks to work at, right? Mm-hmm. We just wouldn't. So that score is in healthcare. Now, Reichel had done that, and most hospitals, healthcare companies are minus 20. Where you're in tech, it's up to 40 and 50 positive. So most healthcare companies, most people are detractors or just don't like where they're working, and that's what we're going to find now. So it's not the answer in itself, but it's a great way to actually measure, hey, does a physician retention program help? You can start with an ENPS. You've got to have a third party do that. We will do that. And that's hard because you got to get everybody to answer. It's a one question thing. And doctors are hurting cats, getting them to do anything. So someone's got to grind and get them to answer that one question. And then you would do it, 6 months every year after you would do something. So that's why it's critically important as a way to measuring, and it's also a way it'll be enlightening for CEOs, especially if you're just taking over a hospital. Like, holy crap, people hate working here.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the corporate world, we do 360s. And so I love the strategy. I love the thought there. And I sort of encourage organizations because, and we'll touch on this next, about leadership and building businesses because, again, in my businesses, I always do 360s. That's how we interact as individuals. How are we as leaders? How are we as employees? How are we as peers? It's enlightening. And
I will tell you, my thought on that is, like, we never got a 360. It was always, we were being judged by our patients. I would tell you that to get physicians truly to answer more than one question.
Yep.
Is hard, right? It is truly hurting cats, and that may be something in the future. But I've seen these surveys, and they do studies, and like 18% of physicians answered. Like, dude, they just do not want to answer because one, they don't want to put themselves in the line. They're afraid to speak out right now.
Yep.
So they're getting whacked all over the place for saying anything negative. You can label somebody disruptive physician any way you want. And I put that in the book about sham peer review. So doctors don't want to put themselves on the line. That's another reason why the ENPS is so critical, because it's anonymous and it's just a number you're putting down. That's
excellent. Great advice. So in the book, you touch on great leaders create great environments. And that stood out to me immediately because, that's what leadership and building businesses is what I do. So elaborate, I love it.
Well, right now, in general, the environments just suck in healthcare. And that's just not me. And I'm not blaming anybody for that. But the system is literally broken. And no one knows what prices are. No one knows how to get things covered. Insurance companies are getting involved in healthcare, and they shouldn't be. They own these other GPOs or the prescription monitoring, the prescription programs. It's a mess. It's really a mess. But in your environment, if you're not doing some of those things that at least show to the physicians you care, versus I put in my book almost the first 15 chapters a quote from physicians just showing what they've been through and how they're being devalued. If you're not showing you care as a CEO, if you're not doing some of those things, which I think you need the ENPS, I think you need a retention program. I think you need a physician's lounge, even if it's not really a place there, even if it's outside of the hospital, a safe space, if you will. You need to recognize Physicians Day, which 50% still don't even do. Those are those things. And it's not just about kissing butts of these godlike physicians. That's not it at all.
Right.
It's your ego has to come out of it. You have to say, listen, whatever it takes to keep a doctor one more year, it's $1 million in my pocket. But you want, for the other reasons we talked about before, about being happy, it'll affect your patient care. It'll affect so many other things going on. So yeah, that environment has to be delved into, and that's what we would do as a company, but also just read the book. I think I put a ton of stuff in there.
You did. So I guess, and on the positive side, there are organizations doing this. There are, great health systems to work for and great leaders to work for. What are there any out there are there any programs that you've seen, or, hey, I've seen this facility, or, this person do this, or, on the positive side, what have you seen?
Yeah, I've seen, we're working with some now, and I don't I put those names out there. Everything's anonymous. Yeah. But for even the ENPS score, I keep anonymous. I'm not here to do that. But I will say that, one of the things I put in my book is having a physician liaison. And one I interviewed from Texas is, the stuff that she's doing as an outreach to doctors, whether it's small gifts here, going in and just checking off they need anything. And these are all employed physicians, some of them not even employed by the hospital, but seeing what they can do to make things smoother. That role of a physician liaison, whether it's an ex-nurse or whatever, is a really important role. And I used to have that when I started my first job, and she was like the mother hen. It was so good to have that person who was nice, so I can ask the little things, because I couldn't get those answers from administration anyway. They knew how to get those answers. That's a simple example of some things that some hospitals are doing.
That's excellent. Are there any facilities that that are out there, that some big names or even small names that say, you know what, they have been working on this for the last 3 to 5 years and have done a great job? Is there anybody out there that?
Yeah, I have to tell you, It is. I've researched this for 10 years, and I know there's some out there, but there's a lot of fluff out there.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
About how they measure this, and I got to tell you, unless I see an ENPS score, unless I know, I'm a doctor. Listen, I'm biased. I mentioned that over in the book over again, and I know that's my bias coming in. I got to know from them, and I have heard of some, and I can't remember offhand that I've spoken to other physicians about that had really worked on trying to do this. So, and I'm sorry I don't have those names off my head, but there's not that many, at least from my, there's probably much more than I don't know about. But unless I hear it from a physician, I'd love to know their ENPS score, because you can fluff and ask the right doctors to speak out, and it seems glorious when 90% hate it.
Yeah, and I'll go
does
back.
That make sense?
It does, and I'll go back to what you said earlier, which I completely agree with. Is if it's not anonymous, people are not going to be honest. And so I know a lot of those surveys that are out there, and I don't want to call any out because, I love everybody, but there are those surveys that are not anonymous. And so people are not in corporate. I'm talking about from my perspective, not the physician side, but from the corporate business side, your HR department is going to know what you said. So you're not going to put down true, honest. In most cases, there are some surveys that are completely anonymous, but I still think that HR gets in the middle of that a little bit, and they can certainly see, certainly in small organizations, who's saying what, or they can just tell who's saying what. So no one is truly transparent.
No one is. Not as physicians, it's worse because we can't have that strike on our record, right? We are not speaking out. So you'll see these things saying so and so got an award. 18% of their people responded. 18%. Who's the 18%?
Right.
And if you speak out, even if you don't get in trouble, and that you put yourself on the line saying, here's what needs to be done, and no one does anything or even talk to you about it, you won't do it again. It's just not waste your time.
Yep. So in the book, you mentioned, right now in medicine, there are some things you cannot change, but some you can. Please elaborate.
Yeah, so we talked about DPC in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Can we fix the healthcare system by getting rid of third parties? Yes, and that's going to be a brutal thing. And I'm not a big single payer guy either. Right. I'm a big free market guy. So I believe the free market can help us. That can change, but I'm not here in this book to do that. I can't. Way beyond my scope, right?
Yep.
So you have to understand what can be changed there and can't. So what can be changed? You need to evaluate where you're at. And that's one thing you can do. We talked about the ENPS. You have to evaluate where you're at. And then you have to go in and have some discussions, just like we do when we see a patient as a doctor, get a history of present illness. We need to figure out, talking to physicians, what's going on. And then there's some things you can add, which I mentioned in the book, which we just talked about. A doctor's lounge, more of a community events, actual having a physician retention program, just showing your doctors, hey, we care enough about you staying that we have a program. So, and then I mentioned the book. Well, that's the whole book. You can just get the book and read more about it there.
Yeah. No, I mean, you bring up it's a great starting point is showing that you care, showing that you're cognizant of a potential issue or the issue.
Yeah.
And then, putting in things to tackle it and to work on together and collaboratively. So I completely agree. And again, I was very intrigued by the book. I read a large chunk of it. I was very impressed with your approach. And again, off air, we talked about this. Your approach and focus on leadership was significant for me because no matter if you're in medicine or what you do, what kind of business you're building, or even running a family. I mean, this book is about leadership, checking in, being self-reflective, being self-aware, and those.
And listening to the one guy that, hey, listen, you know what? This guy's going to tell me what's going on. I may not like what I'm hearing.
Right.
But I don't have to get mad at him. He's the messenger.
Correct.
At least I get to hear what's going on instead of everybody else just blowing smoke up my butt.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
This guy's telling you this is what's going on, and maybe here's some things to help you. I hope you appreciate that, but if you hate me for it, dude, I can't help you.
Correct.
That is what it is.
That's awesome. No, great book. So now, and my last question, about a minute and a half or so, I always ask this of all my guests, and now it's actually become its own segment at times, is where do you go to get or be inspired personally?
For me, I'm retired now, so life's a little bit different. I have an office in my house. I try to do the first few hours every day of doing just some quiet time and doing the work without any people getting in touch with me. So I'm a big believer in the book Deep Work and how he goes about things, and I think it's a wonderful book. And I think I have more time than I ever thought of, so I really get to dig deep into this stuff, and so that's how I do it. I have an office in my house. Other times I go for a walk each morning, and that helps also. But it's all about distraction. To be honest with you, the less distraction you have is inversely proportional to the more work you do, right?
Yeah. Very true. No, I'm a big proponent of, obviously taking time, also blocking time, and, shutting the phone off, shutting email down, focusing, thinking, but also you mentioned walking. That's actually one of my bigger things now. Yesterday I went for a 5-mile walk. The next week I'll be in my Sarasota place. So I'll actually walk, oh my gosh, probably 8 to 10 miles almost every day. And I just love to walk around the water and just, be outdoors. Yep. And yeah, I run, but I also walking as I get older. I used to run almost every other day, 3 miles, 3.1, but it just got to a point where I got to be careful. I don't do that too much. So now I walk a little bit more. I run probably twice a week, but I'll walk 4 to 5 days a week. Just from a health perspective, it's better on my joints.
I had this discussion with somebody else. Anything you get into flow.
Yep.
And so when you're in flow, you're not thinking about other things. And when you're in flow, you're not being distracted. Every distraction takes you out of flow or out of that deep work. Yep. And then you're not 100%.
You got it. Doug, so great to have you on air. You are a phenomenal guest. I'm sure I'll have you back. I love the topic and I love the approach. So thank you.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You got it. And thanks so much to everyone for listening and joining us today and taking time out of your busy schedules to join us as well. And you can join us weekdays and tune in at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific. As always, you can track me on Twitter at HIT Advisor and use the hashtag #ThisJustinRadio so we can respond to your comments from the show. If you miss any of this episode or want to hear more, all my shows are posted on Apple iTunes, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and TuneIn. You also can check out some of the new content we posted on justinbarnes.com. Thanks, everyone, and stay safe.